My beloved child, take one slow breath and resist the urge to rush ahead, because there is a reason this exact moment found you before your next step did. Imagine opening a book you believed you already understood, only to discover that an entirely new chapter had been quietly waiting beyond the page you never thought to turn. That is where you are now. The next chapter of your story may begin soon, but not in the way you expect. It will not arrive with loud announcements or dramatic signs. It will begin with a subtle shift in the way you see yourself, the way you understand your past, and the way you recognize the opportunities that have been standing beside you all along. Stay a little longer. The first clue has already appeared, and most people would have walked past it without noticing. Think about the moments that seemed unfinished. The conversations that ended too quickly. The ideas that appeared for only a second before disappearing into the noise of everyday life. At the time, they looked like scattered fragments with no connection. But what if they were never separate? What if they were quietly preparing the opening scene of a story that could only begin after you became the person capable of understanding it? This is the remarkable thing about meaningful change. It rarely asks for permission. It patiently waits until your perspective is ready. Suddenly, an old memory carries a new meaning. A small decision feels unexpectedly important. A simple encounter begins echoing far beyond the moment itself. You might think nothing extraordinary is happening, yet beneath the surface, countless unseen pieces are moving into place. Before you move on, ask yourself one question. What if the life you have been hoping for has been approaching from a direction you never thought to watch? Now let your thoughts become still for just another moment. There is something fascinating about new beginnings. They often disguise themselves as ordinary days until one realization changes everything. The chapter ahead will not ask you to become someone entirely different. Instead, it will reveal strengths you have already been building through every challenge, every lesson, and every unexpected turn. The future is not suddenly appearing from nowhere. It has been quietly growing inside the choices you have already made. Before you leave this part behind, remember this one line: the greatest turning points are rarely recognized while they are happening. They are understood only when enough pieces finally come together. And in the next part, you will discover the overlooked detail that connects every delay, every question, and every unexpected moment into one extraordinary beginning. You will understand why this chapter could not have started any sooner, and why it may be much closer than you ever imagined. A quiet signal has been following you for longer than you realize, but today it begins to make sense. It was never hidden because it wanted to remain unseen. It remained unnoticed because every meaningful discovery asks for a new perspective before it can be recognized. Imagine standing before a doorway that has always existed, yet only now do you notice the light beneath it. That doorway is not leading you away from your past. It is inviting you to understand it differently. The next chapter of your story may begin soon because you are no longer carrying the same understanding you once did. Every challenge has refined your vision. Every unanswered question has quietly expanded your awareness. Wait until the next few moments, because one surprising connection is about to change the way you interpret everything that has happened so far. Look closely at the patterns you once ignored. The moments that felt like interruptions. The plans that unfolded differently than expected. The unexpected pauses that seemed to slow everything down. What if those pauses were not empty at all? What if they were creating space for something your earlier perspective could never have recognized? That is how meaningful chapters begin. They do not erase the previous pages. They reveal why those pages mattered. Suddenly, what looked like a setback becomes preparation. What felt like uncertainty becomes direction. And what once seemed unfinished begins to reveal its purpose. You might miss the turning point if you stop here, because the most important realization has not yet appeared. It is hidden inside one small detail that almost everyone overlooks: the moment they stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and begin asking, "What has this been preparing me to become?" Another layer of this story is ready to unfold. The chapter ahead is not asking you to predict the future. It is inviting you to recognize the quiet transformation already taking place within you. The confidence you have been building. The wisdom you have gained without noticing. The patience that was formed through moments you once wished would end more quickly. Those changes are not background details. They are the foundation of everything that comes next. If these reflections have opened a new way of seeing your own journey, consider sharing them with someone who may also need this perspective today. And if stories like this continue to bring clarity, remember to subscribe so we can continue exploring the chapters that shape our lives together. But do not close the book yet. The next part reveals the single realization that explains why this new chapter has been waiting for this exact moment to begin, and once you hear it, the title of this story will take on an entirely new meaning. A remarkable discovery is waiting just beyond the page you are reading now. There is a reason the next chapter has not begun until this very season. It is not because the opportunity was missing. It is because your understanding was still growing. Imagine planting a seed and checking the soil every single day, wondering why nothing seems to change. Then one morning, without warning, you notice the first sign of new life. The growth did not begin that day. It began long before anyone could see it. Your story has been unfolding in exactly the same way. Every experience, every challenge, and every unexpected pause has been quietly shaping the person who is now ready for what comes next. Stay with this journey a little longer, because the most important connection is only now beginning to reveal itself. Consider this question carefully. What if the greatest turning point is not an event waiting in front of you, but a realization already forming inside you? Most people spend their lives waiting for the world to change before they believe a new chapter has started. Yet the most meaningful transformations often begin in silence. They begin the moment you stop measuring your progress by what others can see and start recognizing the strength that has been built within you. Suddenly, old disappointments lose their power. Past delays become lessons instead of burdens. Even the moments that once seemed meaningless begin to reveal why they were necessary. That is the hidden beauty of every lasting story. The chapter does not change because the pages are different. It changes because the person reading them has become wiser than before. Before you continue, hold on to this thought: the future often arrives quietly, disguised as an ordinary day that carries an extraordinary decision. There is still one piece missing, and without it, the picture remains incomplete. The next chapter is not only about what is coming. It is also about why it could never have begun earlier. Every question you carried, every unexpected turn you experienced, and every lesson you almost overlooked has been leading toward one unforgettable realization. Before you go any further, remember this line: the greatest stories are not remembered because they happened quickly. They are remembered because every chapter arrived exactly when it was meant to. The next part will uncover the final connection that brings every page together, revealing why this moment may become the beginning you will one day look back on with complete understanding. The story is becoming clearer, but one essential piece is still waiting to be revealed. Imagine climbing a mountain in the early morning. At first, the mist hides the landscape, and every step feels uncertain. Then, little by little, the clouds begin to move. Nothing around you has changed. Only your ability to see has. That is exactly what is happening now. The next chapter of your story may begin soon because your perspective is reaching a place it has never reached before. The questions that once filled your mind are slowly giving way to understanding. The uncertainty that once felt overwhelming is beginning to lose its influence. Stay a little longer, because what comes next will connect every unexpected delay, every quiet lesson, and every decision that once seemed impossible to explain. Now consider something that most people never notice. Every meaningful chapter begins with a choice that appears ordinary in the moment. It is rarely the loudest decision or the most dramatic event. More often, it is a quiet commitment to keep moving forward when nothing seems to be changing. That single decision becomes the invisible bridge between the life you have known and the life you are preparing to enter. What if the opportunities you have been waiting for are already moving toward you, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you have become ready to recognize them? Before you leave this chapter behind, ask yourself one question: if fear no longer had the final word, what direction would your next step take? Sometimes that answer reveals far more than years of searching ever could. Only one chapter remains before the entire picture comes into focus. The final revelation is not another mystery. It is the key that explains why every page of your journey mattered, even the ones you wished you could skip. Wait until the final moment before deciding what this story truly means. When the last chapter arrives, you will see how every pause, every challenge, every unexpected turn, and every quiet victory has been preparing you for a beginning that could only happen now. The most meaningful truth has been intentionally saved until the very end, and when it is finally revealed, the title of this journey will feel less like a promise and more like something you have quietly been living all along. A new horizon is beginning to appear, but it is still just beyond the edge of your vision. This is the part of every meaningful journey where patience becomes more valuable than certainty. Imagine standing before a sunrise. The light does not appear all at once. It quietly replaces the darkness until, without realizing it, you are surrounded by a completely different view. Your story is unfolding in the same way. The next chapter is not rushing toward you. It is revealing itself one insight at a time. Every lesson you once questioned has been shaping the perspective you needed for what comes next. Stay a little longer, because one overlooked realization is about to connect everything you have heard so far. Think back to the moments that tested your confidence. At the time, they felt like interruptions. Today, they begin to look more like preparation. Every unexpected delay encouraged patience. Every unanswered question strengthened your ability to keep moving without seeing the entire path. Every change that seemed inconvenient quietly expanded your understanding. What if those experiences were never standing in your way? What if they were building the foundation that your next chapter requires? This is why lasting transformation feels different from temporary excitement. It is steady. It is thoughtful. It grows beneath the surface long before anyone notices it. Before you move ahead, ask yourself another question. If everything you have experienced has been preparing you instead of preventing you, how differently would you see this very moment? There is still another page waiting to be turned before the full picture is revealed. One final connection has not yet been uncovered, and it explains why this season feels unlike any other you have lived before. Do not rush to the ending, because the greatest insight is not found by reaching the last page quickly. It is found by understanding why every page before it had to exist. The next chapter will uncover the hidden thread that has been quietly linking your past, your present, and the future that is beginning to unfold. When that thread becomes visible, every question you carried will take on an entirely new meaning, and the story will feel more complete than you ever imagined. A subtle shift is happening even now, and most people would mistake it for an ordinary day. That is how the most meaningful chapters often begin. They do not announce themselves with certainty. They arrive through a quiet change in the way you think, the way you respond, and the way you recognize possibilities that once seemed invisible. Stay a little longer, because this part of the journey holds a clue that almost everyone overlooks. Imagine looking at a key without knowing which door it belongs to. For a long time, it appears ordinary. Then one day, you discover the lock it was always meant to open. Suddenly, everything changes, not because the key became different, but because its purpose was finally understood. Your experiences have been like that key. The value was always there. The understanding is only now catching up. There is another question worth asking. Why do some opportunities appear only after you stop chasing them? Perhaps it is because your attention has shifted from proving yourself to preparing yourself. That quiet difference changes everything. When your focus moves from urgency to awareness, you begin noticing details that were always present but hidden beneath distraction. A conversation feels more meaningful. An idea returns with greater clarity. A decision that once seemed impossible suddenly becomes simple. These are not random moments. They are signs that your perspective is evolving. The next chapter of your story is not asking you to become someone else. It is inviting you to trust the wisdom you have already earned through every challenge, every lesson, and every unexpected turn. Before you move forward, consider this thought: perhaps the greatest opportunity is not waiting somewhere ahead, it is waiting for you to recognize it when it quietly appears. Do not close this story yet, because one essential piece is still missing. The final connection has not been revealed, and without it, the deeper meaning of this journey remains just beyond reach. There is one insight that explains why every delay, every unexpected change, and every quiet season had to happen exactly as they did. When that realization arrives, every previous chapter will suddenly make sense in a way you could never have imagined before. Wait until that moment before deciding what this story truly means, because the most important page has not yet been turned. The closer you come to the next chapter, the quieter everything seems to become. That is not because the story has slowed down. It is because the most important transformations happen beneath the surface before they become visible. Stay a little longer, because this is where the hidden pattern begins to reveal itself. Imagine watching a river from above. At first, it appears to wander without direction, turning left, then right, disappearing behind trees before returning into view. Only from a higher perspective do you realize that every curve was leading toward the same destination. Your journey has followed that same rhythm. What once felt like detours now begin to look like essential parts of a path that could not have unfolded any other way. Now pause for one thoughtful question. What if the chapter you have been waiting for has already begun, but in a form too quiet to recognize? Many people expect a new beginning to feel dramatic. Instead, it often arrives through a different mindset, a calmer heart, and a clearer vision of what truly matters. Suddenly, old fears no longer control your choices. Past disappointments no longer define your expectations. Decisions that once felt overwhelming begin to feel surprisingly simple because your understanding has changed. That is the hidden transition very few people notice. The world may look the same on the outside, yet everything feels different within. Before you continue, remember this: the strongest foundations are built long before the building rises into view, and your foundation has been growing through every lesson you almost overlooked. Only one chapter remains before every piece falls into place. The final part will not introduce another mystery. It will reveal why every page of this journey had to unfold exactly as it did, and why this moment carries more meaning than you could have recognized before today. Wait until the final moment before drawing your conclusion. When the last chapter arrives, you will see how every pause, every question, every unexpected turn, and every quiet victory has been preparing you for a beginning that was never late. It was simply arriving at the only time it could truly be understood. The final page does not close your story. It quietly opens the one you have been preparing for all along. The next chapter of your story may begin soon, not because everything around you suddenly changes overnight, but because you are no longer seeing life through the same eyes. Every experience has shaped your perspective. Every challenge has strengthened your patience. Every unanswered question has expanded your understanding. And now, what once looked like random moments reveals itself as a carefully connected journey. The beginning you have been waiting for was never separated from your past. It was being built by it. The lessons you once wished you could skip have become the very foundation that makes this new chapter possible. The greatest turning points are rarely announced. They arrive quietly, and only later do we realize we were standing at the doorway all along. Take one last look at everything this journey has revealed. The delays were not empty. They were creating space for deeper wisdom. The unexpected turns were not taking you away from your purpose. They were guiding you toward a version of yourself capable of carrying it with confidence. Even the ordinary days had meaning beyond what you could see at the time. Every choice to keep learning, every moment you refused to give up, and every quiet step forward became another sentence in a story that was growing stronger with each passing season. If these reflections have brought clarity to your heart, consider sharing this message with someone who may also need this perspective today. And if journeys like this continue to inspire you, remember to subscribe so we can keep exploring the chapters that shape our lives together. Now carry this final thought with you wherever your path leads next. Never believe that progress is measured only by dramatic moments. Sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin in complete silence. They begin with one new understanding, one courageous decision, or one quiet realization that changes the way you see everything else. Keep your heart open to learning. Keep your mind open to possibility. Keep moving with purpose, even when the road ahead seems ordinary, because the greatest chapters are often written one faithful step at a time. One day you will look back on this very season and realize that it was never simply another page in your life. It was the moment the entire story changed direction, and from that point forward, every chapter carried a deeper meaning than you ever thought possible.